Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy Rap. We are starting out week 2 of the fantasy season, and the first thing we're going to do is P's Picks. Hey everybody, it's time for P's Picks, right? What time is it? P's Picks. So today we've got the Dolphins and the Bills. Sorry, Dolphins and the Bills. Thanks. So, Sutton, who do you think we should talk about today? You want to talk about the Dolphins? Okay.
Say fins up.
Fins up. And it's a good thing because you have a... What's this?
Crackers.
No, what is this?
Those.
Is it a ducky?
No, crackers.
Oh,
Quackers the
Quackers the duck. So, I want to thank you. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say see you next week. Say see you next week. You gotta say it.
You say it. Say, see you next week.
And see you next week.
Hey, everybody. So you saw who Sutton chose. She chose the Miami Dolphins from the game last night, from the Thursday night game. Good game.
Well,
I mean, good game from the perspective of fantasy-wise. A couple of players got some points.
yes. Yeah, if you were a James Cook manager or Devon Achane manager, you were very happy.
Yeah.
So,
Outside of that, the Buffalo defense did well.
yeah, tell me about it.
But
Playing
pretty
against
much
them this week.
pretty much no one from a quarterback, wide receiver, tight end perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So taking a look at Miami's stats, we've got Tua, who was 11 of 25 for 145 yards, a touchdown, 3 interceptions, 2 rushes, 17 yards, but most importantly, a seriously bad-looking concussion.
Yeah. Obviously, we talked about it. What was that back then? It was 22, 23?
22.
22. When he had the like
Back-to-back
3 of
weeks
them.
or something.
Yeah, he had like 3 of them in that season. But he had the 2 back-to-back. But
And we even talked about,
mm-hmm.
What's more important, continuing, because, and when we talked about it back then, it
mm-hmm.
was, he got knocked senseless. He was pretty much gone.
The hands, whatever the term is for that.
Yeah, I forget what
almost cramping,
Right.
kind of,
And that happened again last night.
Yeah, and, we were talking earlier, that hit really didn't look that hard,
Well, and the
But
interesting
again,
thing, like we were talking about, was that it was, it was eerily familiar to the hit that Damar Hamlin took
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the 22 season, which was someone hitting him right in the middle of the chest.
Yep.
And Tua, he was trying for the yardage, and he put his head down last second and hit Damar right in the chest. And, it was instantly you could see that that Tua was in
Yep. Yeah, there's
distress.
Of course, people, a lot of comments been seeing out there about how bad he was playing before that, and he should have slid or dove, and it's like, well, excuse me, in that situation they had to score on that drive.
Well, he had the first down, though.
Yes.
So here's my argument.
Yeah.
So I'm 60 years old. I know I only look about 45. I'm 60 years old, and I play slow pitch softball. And if I'm going into a base, 95 times out of 100, I'm sliding headfirst.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's something that I've done for so long that it's nearly impossible to change.
Yeah.
These guys are professional athletes who are paid millions of dollars to do what they're supposed to do, which is win.
Yep.
I play because I love it. They play because they love it, but they're getting paid to do it, and everybody expects something from them.
Yes.
So to sit there and say to a guy, "Oh, don't go head first," but then if you slide, they're going to say, "Well, why didn't you just go head first?"
Exactly.
So-
It's a lose-lose. And,
Right.
I think hopefully Tua will take a long look at exactly what you just said, what's more important. The coach in the post-game, he was having a hard time talking about it. I watched a couple clips about it, and he couldn't really find words, on what to say about the whole situation. And, and he's like, I can't forecast what's going to happen, with him. And, he, like I said, he didn't know how to answer. Cause of course everybody's like, oh, what are you doing next week? And, blah, blah. And what do you
Now's
think
not the
is
time.
is Tua ever going to play again? And it's like, well,
Now's not the
give
time.
us,
And-
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean-
give us a second here.
Right. I mean, you look at the impact of CTE. You look at Aaron Hernandez. You look at the people who have committed suicide, etc., or have killed someone. You look at, wide receiver
Antonio Brown.
I mean, obviously, there's no proof that he has it, but there are a lot of signs that show that he has it.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these guys who and offensive linemen. I know there was a guy from, I think, Pittsburgh, a center or an offensive lineman who I think he committed suicide.
Okay.
Was one of those, offensive linemen have little concussions over and over and over and over. And these guys, what good is making a couple $100 million if you're not going to be able to spend it?
Yep.
Or to enjoy some life after football? And
Yeah.
so many of these injuries are catastrophic in a sense.
Yeah.
So I hope that he finds wisdom. Like I said 2 years ago, I hope he hangs it up.
Yeah.
There's just too much at stake.
I agree. Yeah. So apparently, little change, getting away from some of that stuff. You were saying that there's some rumors floating around about Tom Brady.
There are.
Whether he's single, and if he's still got the passion, why not?
It's not like his wife is going to tell him he shouldn't be playing.
Exactly. So,
and
Tannehill, obviously, he got, he was getting thrown out with, for Green Bay after
Right.
Jordan Love, with his knee. But, I think Tannehill would be a much better option than Skylar Thompson.
Oh, absolutely.
Their backup who came in last night.
If Tua is not going to play this season, or going forward. Now, the Tom Brady issue is, how much money would he want?
Yeah.
On top of that, he's doing his new job, which is a 10-year, $375 million contract to be a color commentator. And let me tell you, I posted on Facebook the other day when I was listening to him because he was horrible. I said, go back to football. And I don't mean commentating. I mean, go back to playing football.
Well, I think somebody made a good point, and maybe he was a little nervous about it because you saw it, like listening to Tony Romo. He was going, they're going to run this play, they're going to pass it to this guy right here. This is what, he was actually, you were learning when you listened to Tony Romo.
I loved listening to Romo.
But I think the NFL, for whatever reason, didn't like that, and they told him to kind of calm it down. So I wonder if they said the same thing to Tom, because,
Tom act like a stiff board.
Well, yeah, but him being a quarterback and one of the greatest of all times, arguably the greatest, he's going to do the same thing that
definitely
Romo
the
did.
most decorated.
Well, yes. So yeah, but so even before the injury, Tua was not playing. The whole Dolphins offense was.
Well, yeah, and
I don't
Buffalo
know
has
what it is about Buffalo
Right.
that makes Miami look like a junior high football team.
Yeah, what if they won
It was like
12 in a row or
something crazy.
It's a stupid number.
I mean, they were doing, first play they throw it to Waddle, like 7 yards, whatever. Like, all right, Tyreek's stat line, he finished 3 of 6, 24 yards. It was that one rush
for 12 yards.
I mean, he had the targets, but a lot of them were short. I don't think he had too many.
But a lot of times, I mean, it's like I've said before. Tyreek Hill,
Yes.
once the ball is in his hands, every single time he has a chance to take it to the house.
Yep.
I don't think we've seen another player like that in a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, going with there's never going to be another Tyreek.
No.
There are guys who, based on the time that they were playing in, were similar to that.
Yeah.
I think Dave Meggett or certain guys that they were just so twitchy.
Barry Sanders.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
twitchy that if they touched the ball, you didn't know
Yep.
whether or not they would score. And like I said, the times were different. Barry Sanders may or may not be Barry Sanders as we knew him in this time frame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
So getting back to it, Devon Achane was 7 catches on 7 targets, 69 yards and a touchdown, 22 rushes for 96 yards. Great game.
Well, it was. I mean, the 22 rushes, and then 7 for 7 on your targets, and then scoring the touchdown. I mean, after the Tua injury, was it fourth quarter? Tyreek and Waddle on the sideline the whole time, protecting, which I understand. Game was on hand, I get it. But it was weird. Well, I think Jeff Wilson, he got hurt in the game. And then Jalen Wright, who's a rookie, I don't get why they didn't give him more opportunities just to really see what you have. But I mean, it was weird seeing Achane out there with basically most of the backups.
Right.
So, but if you're Achane and he went in questionable,
right,
game time, and then he
had
was
a
active,
huge game.
and if you were afraid of it, I would have been, because he's last season missed some time, as well, so he's durability there, so it gives you a little, a big boost of confidence in him,
Right.
Especially if Mostert's going to be out for longer, and then we'll see what happens with Jeff Wilson. It could be Achane and Wright going forward, and I think Achane's going to be the bell cow for a while. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, he was productive in his touches. I mean, we look back at Cook, and while he had great production with his touches, he only touched the ball 12 times.
Yeah,
and
I think by the end of the game, Achane actually outscored him in PPR formats.
It would have been really close.
Yeah. So.
Based on, but 3 touchdowns to 1, that's still a killer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been close.
Yeah.
So other people we have are Jalen Waddle, who was 4 catches on 4 targets for 41 yards, rushed it once for 4 yards.
Almost had a touchdown.
Again, almost had a touchdown. Was stopped. He put I believe his elbow or his knee went down just before he got to the goal line.
Yep.
And then we had Jonnu Smith, who was 6 catches on 7 targets for 53 yards.
Yeah, they were trying to get Jonnu. I mean, he was, I think, was that, the one where Tua faked a pitch or a inside handoff and then flicked it.
Yeah.
To Jonnu Smith.
Quick, forward lateral.
Yeah, so they were trying to get him involved. I mean, he had 7
right-handed.
Yeah.
By Tua.
Yeah, so they were trying to get him involved, but obviously depending on how long Tua's out, one of the commentators last night made the comment that Miami, Jonnu Smith might be a piece they've been looking for a while. They haven't had a true, a tight end that can go out and do things like Jonnu Smith still can. So,
if with an injury, usually, and I'm not saying always, but usually that new quarterback is more apt to look for checkdowns, to look for the tight end instead of trying to throw into traffic and coverage, and they make those plays. So Jonnu Smith may actually increase value, while other guys might decrease in value.
I think Waddle's going to be the one that takes the biggest hit here, which stinks because I have him in 2 leagues, a dynasty and then our redraft. So, excuse me, but I think Tyreek, we're going to see a lot more of those short yardage sweeps, pitch, like they're going to try and get him the ball as much as they can,
Agreed.
as long as Tua is out. So
Agreed.
I think Tyreek will stay about where he's at, and I think Waddle takes the biggest hit, which again sucks. But
Yep, it happens.
that's fantasy life.
Yep. So moving on, we've got our picks of the week, and based on CBS's rankings for my non-PPR league, their quarterback listing is Hurts, Lamar, Mahomes, Kyler, Fields, and Daniels.
Yes, that's Justin Fields.
Yep. Mainly because he can run too. But, I look at those and I think, where are the big name quarterbacks? I mean, you've got Hurts and Lamar. Where's Stroud? Where's Dak? Where's Mahomes? I mean, Rodgers.
Yep.
Where is Kirk Cousins? Where,
Well, in the quarterback position has been evolving for the last, probably 5-6 years, is with your Hurts, Jalen Hurts, your Lamars, your Kylers, your Justin Fields, Jaden Daniels, who had, came out week 1 fantasy-wise, was great. Thank you, Jaden Daniels.
Anthony Richardson.
It's if you got a quarterback that can rush the ball well, it's a cheat code for fantasy. You get a Mahomes, who I put Mahomes out trade block in Dynasty because he's he doesn't rush a whole lot.
Right.
So Mahomes, in order to, stay even with these guys, where Jaden Daniels, if he rushes for 60 yards, Mahomes has to throw one more touchdown.
Right.
Right. So, or
Well, no.
1.5,
Right.
whatever. So, Mahomes has to do more with his arm than these guys can do with their legs. So that's where we're getting all these
Right.
mobile quarterbacks in the top. That's why Justin Fields is in the top
Oh, yeah,
4
yeah,
according
yeah.
to CBS.
And they like their matchup
Yep.
with their personnel.
Yep.
I find it interesting that, last week they were high on Caleb Williams.
Of course. Yeah.
All 93 yards passing or whatever he had. So they must have recognized that his numbers may not be so good for a while.
Well, you got Keenan not practicing. You got Adunze not practicing. So he's going to be down to DJ Moore and Cole Kmet and whoever else they have there. I'm not even sure. Do they still have Equinemius on the team?
Oh gosh, I thought he was gone.
Yeah, I don't know. He might still be there, but who knows?
So moving on, we've got our running backs: Saquon, Bijan, Kyron, JT, Derrick Henry, and Brees Hall.
Mm-hmm.
All the names that you expect to see there, except for
Christian McCaffrey.
no, Isaiah Pacheco. He was on there every single time last year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I remember that now. Yes.
Remember, we would always joke about, Isaiah Pacheco is ahead of CMC.
Yes, I do remember that.
No, that was a joke. CMC obviously is not on there. He's injured this week. They aren't waiting till game time to hose everybody on a Monday night game.
Yeah, so you don't have to panic drop Lazard to pick up
Right.
check again,
However,
and then re-add Lazard.
Yeah.
You had to pay for
I had
him,
to pay to buy Lazard back. It cost me $11 fab just to get my player back. Someone else bid $5, so I was lucky that I put in the bid I did. I like those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got decent matchups. Saquon at Atlanta. I mean, that could just be disgusting.
Oh,
Bijan at Philadelphia is going to be tough, although Philadelphia is not the best run defense. Kyron versus Arizona at Arizona.
Arizona has no defense.
Right. JT against Green Bay.
Just let up how many yards?
Well,
124 yards to Saquon and 3 touchdowns.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, outside of like 2 big runs,
Yes.
he was held under 3.5 yards per carry on the majority of his carries. Now, that doesn't matter. I mean, how does Derrick Henry make his money? Pounding and pounding, getting 2, 3, 4 yards, and then boom, there goes a 45, 60-yard whatever. So I like, he plays against Las Vegas, and they're not good, and Brees plays against Tennessee.
Yeah. Which Tennessee's rush defense is actually pretty good, but Brees Hall gets so much passing
Everything,
work.
right.
So, and he gets, everything. It's the same with Bijan.
Yeah.
I mean, Bijan I can't remember what the percentage was of the offense last
Right.
week, but Bijan gets everything. So,
Yep. I mean, it's kind of like HN last night,
Yeah.
getting 29 touches. At wide receiver, we've got CeeDee Lamb, we've got Cooper Kupp, we've got A.J. Brown, we've got Jaden Reed, which is interesting, Mike Evans, and Justin Jefferson. I don't necessarily disagree with any of those. So CeeDee Lamb plays against New Orleans. He's going to have a big game no matter what. He's going to see his 12 to 15 targets. Cooper Kupp is probably going to see his 18 targets. It could be 25 targets.
He had 21 last week.
A.J. Brown is questionable. Plays the Monday night game.
Yeah.
I've got him on 2 of my fantasy teams. And
like he's like questionable tagged. Questionable.
he's tagged questionable.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you were like,
No. He's
I don't know,
he's tagged questionable.
Gotcha. Yeah. That
So
sucks.
for a Monday night game again, and so I already moved him into my flex in one, and the other one. I mean, I'm going to wait until obviously Sunday and find out whether or not they change any of that. But as of right now, the designation is
Gotcha.
questionable, and I mean that's scary. Jaden Reed at Indy or at home against Indy, I think that much like they did last week, they will look for ways to get Jaden Reed the ball.
I don't see him being the ranked their projected number 4 receiver, but again they're gonna run plays designed specifically for him. He's probably gonna get a couple carries this week,
Right.
So
Right. And with the change of quarterback, more than likely, you will see the shorter routes will win. I
Yep.
mean, just like I said with Tua's replacement. I mean, that's just the way it goes.
Yep.
You don't walk in and throw downfield nonstop.
Yeah.
So Mike Evans at Detroit.
It's just a
Mike
touchdown
Evans.
machine.
Yeah. JJ at home against San Francisco. Detroit is Goff is always better home versus away.
Yep.
So why am I saying him?
Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold has played well so far. I mean, in the 1 week, I don't know why I was putting him on Detroit.
Last year, Minnesota upset San Francisco too.
Okay.
They beat them. I can't remember what week that was, but they won against San Francisco, and I mean Addison. We'll see what happens with him if he's going to play. 'Cause I think he's still dealing with that ankle. So if he doesn't, I think JJ is going to have a target stat line like Cooper Kupp. He's going to have like 20
He
targets.
probably will,
and I
but
think Aaron Jones is going to be up there with targets.
I was going to
as
say
well,
I mean, they've got a double coverage, JJ.
Yeah, but he's good. So
He
he's
is.
good.
He is, except for when he plays against Jair.
Yeah.
Moving on to our tight ends, we've got Kelsey, Kittle, Pitts, Laporta, Likely, and Taysom Hill. Kelsey, definitely against Cincinnati, unless they figure out how to take him out of the game like they did like he was last week by Baltimore.
Yep.
Kittle at Minnesota. Again, you're without CMC.
Yeah.
Jordan Mason should have another good game. Minnesota looked a little bit better than we had anticipated.
Yeah, Minnesota's defense is actually pretty good. I mean, they were starting to put it together last season too. Their defense was really clicking, and they made some pretty good additions this year. I mean, I think you saw, was it Van Ginkel is now on the Vikings? He had a pick six. He's came off the end and had a pick six.
I like Van Ginkel.
I want to say he's playing for Minnesota now.
Maybe.
But yeah, so I mean they've brought in some guys, and they've drafted well on the defensive side of the ball. So it'll depend if they can keep it interesting enough with Sam Darnold to make Brock Purdy have to throw it and then not just give Jordan Mason 30 carries again. So
Exactly. Next, Pitts at Philadelphia. Not necessarily a huge fan of it.
Throw a whole lot, and I mean he caught a touchdown last week.
Right.
Not a whole lot of yardage, but
Yeah, I mean he was one of the top tight end
Yeah.
receivers. We'll have
Second
to
game
see.
back for Kirk Cousins. Maybe he's feeling a little bit, nerves are gone, or not quite as bad. Coming back with that Achilles. So
Yeah, I mean, and I get that. When I broke an ankle playing hockey and then tried to get back out on skates and play
try not
hockey.
to stop too hard.
Well, yeah, and you're constantly thinking, if I put that foot down, is it just going to roll and snap again?
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm sure that they sit there thinking, what happens if I push a certain way?
Yeah.
Is it just going to make
Or I
me
get
crumble
sacked
again?
And,
Yeah.
somebody
And the
falls
foot
on
gets
that.
caught. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, I get it. Laporta versus Tampa Bay.
I think that's going to be a really good game. I honestly think Tampa Bay is going to keep it really close. I think that's going to be a really, really good game. So I think you'll see a better game out of Amon-Ra as well, because he only had like 4 targets last week for like 3 catches. So, but that was a weird game too. Like I said, the Rams-Lions game last week. So
Yeah.
I think Detroit-Tampa is going to be a very, very good game.
Yeah, it should be. Isaiah Likely versus Las Vegas.
It's against
Isaiah
Vegas.
Likely. Well, it's
against-
Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
I mean, Likely looked like a wide receiver, like
Yeah.
we said. He was treated like a wide receiver, and they covered Andrews, so he was open.
I'd say Isaiah Likely is their wide receiver too.
Yeah.
I think he's better than Rashad Bateman.
I think you're better than Rashad Bateman.
Thanks. I think I'd Zay Flowers. And
Yeah.
we saw what Zay Flowers was doing last week, and it was mostly short yardage stuff.
To try and get the ball in his hand.
Yes, exactly, because he's not quite Tyreek Hill, but he's one of those twitchy guys that can just, and then he could break one.
Right.
They
They can't see this.
Oh, sorry.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
on the podcast, I don't think they see you moving your hands
Oh,
like
sorry.
that.
Yeah, the audio. Yes.
Not the video one. I think they can see you there.
Just imagine when I say twitchy, just picture what you want. So,
Yeah.
So, and that frees up Likely. And I'm hoping, for my own sake, I'm hoping Andrews will have a bounce back game here too. Again, that was first game back last week. Kansas City just took him out of said, nope. And Vegas doesn't have the personnel to do that. So they're going to have to choose whether to cover Likely, and keep him from the long touchdown like he had, or, but I think Baltimore is going to be a team not to the level of the Patriots with Gronk and Hernandez, but I think both of the Likely and Andrews are both going to end up being hopefully top 8 tight ends this season. So
Very, very tight end relevant.
Yep.
We move on to Taysom Hill at Dallas. I don't like Taysom Hill.
I don't either. But he's inevitable.
But
He's going to get carries.
but
He's gonna get
but how
targets.
many points did he get you last week?
Well, that's the Taysom Hill experience.
Yeah.
He very well.
That's
could
why I
come
said
out
I
and
don't
be-
like him.
Exactly. He very well could come out against a very good defense in Dallas and be tight end 1 by 8 points. He could outscore anybody else by 8 points.
He could.
Foster
that's
Moreau,
why-
I think, is going to be out this week because he was banged up.
Yeah.
So, Juwan Jennings, I actually put Juwan Jennings in one of my DraftKings lineups. Is just a dart throw, cheap option. And Taysom's going to be,
It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like we've said, it's like Kittle, feast or famine. And I don't like those guys, and I've said it before. So I'm not a fan of Taysom Hill, whether he's QB relevant or tight end relevant, whatever. He's just not relevant on my team.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
So we move on to our actual picks. And at quarterback, and I'm sorry if I chose any ahead of you that you wanted, I went with Stroud. Play Chicago in Houston.
I think that'll depend if Chicago, it's Chicago's defense.
Chicago's defense, while they won the game for them against Tennessee, it was Will Levis who gave the game away. It wasn't a great defensive performance. No. I mean, they put pressure on him, but not a good line. There's a difference between C.J. Stroud
and Will Levis.
And Will Levis.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
night and day.
I think, you know, if Houston comes out and like they did last week, I mean, granted, who did they play? Indy? Who did they play? No, last week.
Yeah, it might have been Indy.
I don't know, but
It was a good game.
you had Mixon throwing up 100 and whatever. I mean, Mixon looked really good,
And Diggs looked really
and
good.
Diggs
And
obviously
those
had 2
weren't
touchdowns.
either of the guys.
Yeah.
Neither of them was on the team last year.
Yeah, and I mean, but Nico was that dude's just a man. He's so good. And then Tank Dell had a down game, but you know, so I think I like. I mean, Stroud any week because of the weapons that you know they have, but you hope that it's him throwing it and not getting down to the 10 and Mixon running one. You know, Mixon running one in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I agree with that, but I think I mean, there were, you know how many 300-yard passers there were in week 1?
1,
Two
2.
300-yard. They said that it was the lowest number in like 30 years or something. That and it's just amazing that happened to the quarterbacking this past
It was the
week.
same with touchdowns scored. It was like half of in the week 1. It was like half of the number of touchdowns scored in 23.
Well, that's because didn't Miami throw up 70 in week 1?
Was that week 1?
I don't remember.
Yeah, that would help, but yeah.
I mean, when you scored 10 touchdowns,
Yeah,
that
that's
just
true.
woo!
That's true.
Who's your pick?
I'm going Dak against New Orleans. Again, New Orleans played. God, why? I'm just blanking. Was it it wasn't the Giants last week, was it?
Mm-mm.
No, Washington. No. Anyways, it played a bad team and made Derek Carr look, you know, like a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So, if Derek Carr can continue that, which is tough to do against Dallas, can be done. I think if New Orleans can keep it somewhat close, it's going to force them to actually, obviously, you know, they got to keep putting up points. So
Right.
I think CeeDee Lamb, obviously, he's the number 1 ranked, you know, projected ranked wide receiver. Lamb's going to have a good game. I like Brandon Cooks as, you know, if you need him in a flex. I'm actually still trying to decide in my redraft league, between Tony Pollard and Brandon Cooks in my flex. That's
PPR?
a tough one. Yeah. So, and Pollard looked good last week against the Jets, who Jordan Mason just ran all over. So that one's tough. But yeah, and Dak started out. He was really, I mean, he got paid all that money right before the game. But, you know, he was looking good. Him and CD were connecting a lot.
Wake up and find out you're a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. So, you know, him and CD were connecting really well. And like I said, Brandon Cooks, he caught a touchdown. And, I mean, Ferguson out, but, you know, you still got, you know, Zeke and Rico Dowdle in the backfield. So I think if New Orleans can keep it close, I like Dak this week.
Gotcha. So moving on to the running backs, I chose Mixon. I can't believe that he wasn't in the top 6.
Yeah,
After last week's performance and the way, I mean, the guy has put up decent numbers. I think that, you know, Cincinnati probably should have kept him.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Well, I mean, really, quietly last year, Mixon, I think, was like the number 5 fantasy running back.
Probably.
And like I said, quietly, like I don't remember.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember ever being like, holy cow.
And
Mixon.
that's the thing. Mixon is usually, I mean, he's going to be up and down a little bit, but he's one of those stable guys. Mm-hmm. He's, you know, talking about other players that we do and don't like, mainly because of their instability or their fluctuation. So they're going against Chicago, and I know I'm going, you know, both Stroud and Mixon, but I you know, it could be such that it's a blowout, and neither of them do well.
It could be. But even when they were up last week, Mixon got everything. He's got no threat, you know, in that backfield. So even if
come on, Dameon Pierce?
No. No. Okay. I mean, he's just going to get he's going to have so many carries this year, and he's involved in the pass game too.
Right.
So.
Right.
So I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs against Tampa. Again, I think it's going to be a really good game. You know, Baker looked. I mean, that's who played Washington was Tampa Bay. Yes. Yeah. That's who played that. And Washington's defense is horrible, but Baker still looked good in that game. And I think they figured it out there, what they want to do. I mean, you saw Chris Godwin had a really good week as well, which last season Godwin was a bench player.
Right.
I mean, you almost couldn't play him even in a flex if you needed to, because he just was so either inconsistent or he was at like 4 points every week. So I think they're starting to figure it out. You got Rachaad White, who had like 7 receptions for like almost 80 yards or something like that. You've got Bucky Irving, who, I picked up and stashed on my bench because I think maybe eventually he might kind of take over as the early down back for them. So they're starting to figure out. So I think they'll keep it close with the Lions. And I mean, we know what Jahmyr Gibbs is. He's going to get 15 touches split between carries and eight carries and 7 receptions or something. And if Tampa can keep it close, I could see them.
But Montgomery gets a lot of.
He gets a lot of carries. But he doesn't get any passes. So, I know this is all your standard scoring CBS. So, and in my mind, I'm all PPR. That's the only league.
No, and that's fine that you choose it that way.
Yeah. So I think Gibbs, like I said, if Tampa keeps it close, I wouldn't be surprised if Gibbs ends up with like 8-9 targets this game and still could get 10 carries.
Yeah.
Like I said, Montgomery, he'll have 15 carries, but 0 receptions, and Montgomery has to score a touchdown in order to have a good week for fantasy.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Moving on, we choose our wide receivers. I'm going Debo. Debo plays
CMC out. Yeah.
Yep. With CMC out, I think that Debo and Ayuk didn't look 100% last week.
Dropped that touchdown.
Yeah.
Which
he just looked
rough.
a little out. I think it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get back into rhythm. But like you said, I get Jordan Mason ran like a stud last week, and he'll probably do similarly this week. But I think that they still work to get Debo the ball.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Debo was getting carries.
Right.
At one point, I was like, what is this, like 2019 when Debo was like their leading rusher, or 2020 when he was getting all the carries, and then he said, if you're going to I'll do it, but you need to pay me. Right. So, yeah, and against Minnesota.
Although he's better off being paid as a wide receiver than he is a running back these days.
That is true. So, my start of the week is just going to be hopefully just quantity is DJ Moore. Said if Keaton's out and
so of the 9 receptions, completions last week from Caleb, you think he might catch all 9 of them?
I mean, if DJ Moore has 9 catches for 93 yards, yeah, that's a decent game. Yeah. Maybe a touchdown.
I've got him in my in the CBS league, and I won't be playing him.
Yeah,
I'll be playing Malik Neighbors.
Actually, I guess I should probably put my money where my mouth is. I benched him in my dynasty league. But that was before I knew that Keenan and Rome were both questionable. I think if they don't play, I probably will put him back. I don't even remember who I swapped him out for, but yeah. Yeah,
mine was pretty easy. It's Malik Neighbors, and Neighbors actually looked good week 1.
And going against Washington. Did you know that, just a quick side note, Daniel Jones, I think it was last year, they got blown out week 1. Looked horrible, like he did this week. Do you know what he did week 2?
No.
Number 1 fantasy quarterback.
Nice. So it looks like it's going to be a Malik Neighbors kind of week.
Yeah. Hopefully. So I've got him in another league as well.
Next up, we've got the tight ends, and I went with Trey McBride against the Rams. Trey McBride is still, Marvin Harrison Jr., yes, he's on that team, and he had 1 reception for 4 yards, I think.
Yes, he dropped one, dropped it really bad. He was in his zone.
Yeah, his very first.
It was an easy catch, and he just whiffed it. So,
and I'm not saying that he's not going to be a stud, because he will be.
Yeah.
But, the nerves, everything that happens, I still would rely on Trey McBride playing against the Rams this week.
Yeah, and Arizona went into Buffalo week 1 and almost beat them.
Right.
They were up 17-3.
Yeah.
Early.
Yeah.
So they
and then fell asleep. They must have thought it was a 2-quarter game.
Must have. That would have been nice. There'd be a lot of bad teams winning games. So,
You got that right.
so I think McBride. Yeah, I mean, he was so good last year towards the, once Kyler came back, and
Yeah.
he had a down week. I mean, well, all tight ends had a down week. All the highly drafted tight ends had a down week last week. So, that's why I'm hoping this week we start seeing these guys, like the top ones here, minus Taysom Hill, Andrews for my own sake, all those guys, kind of ramp it up here week 2. And I like McBride in a good spot against the Rams. So, And then I'm going the tight end on the other team. I'm gonna go Colby Parkinson against Arizona. Puka's out for sounds like could be up to like 8 weeks.
Wow.
They said 4 to 8 or 4 to 6 even, but I think week 6 is their bye. So I think even if he was good to go for week 5, they might just sit him anyways. Take
We
an extra
can't play
2
him
weeks.
5. He has to be out for 4.
Well, 4, yeah. He's on
Oh, you mean the 5th week from here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, from here. Yes.
I thought you meant week 5 as in
No,
week
no,
5.
yeah, no.
So week 6.
Yes.
And
So-
then they're bye.
Yes.
Because
So
in
they
week
might
5,
just-
don't they play against Green Bay?
Something, yeah. I think that sounds right. So their bye is close enough to where they could just
Gotcha.
be like, just let's wait till after. We'll see how you feel, and there's a chance he might not even be ready for that.
Right.
And then a couple week ramp up. So I think Parkinson, and he was fairly involved last week too.
Right.
So I think he'll be a little more involved because obviously, as much as I'm sure Stafford would love to throw 40 balls to Cooper Kupp, eventually the defense just is going to put 9 guys on
Right,
him and say no.
Right.
So,
Or they're going to triple cover him and throw
Yeah.
11 or 8 guys in a rush.
Yeah.
In a blitz.
yeah.
Here, go ahead, throw it at him.
Yeah.
So next up, we've got our love 'em, flip 'em, leave 'em. And I decided to throw out some big names, big name quarterbacks. First one's Kirk Cousins. Second one is Caleb Williams. And third one is Joe Burrow.
This one's actually tough.
Kirk Cousins in the sense that the guy has been one of the top fantasy producers outside of last year for probably the last 5-6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying he's the top one,
Yeah.
but over that stretch of time, he is one of the most consistent quarterbacks from a fantasy perspective. Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick, highly expected to be the answer, and I think down the road he very well may be, but he doesn't look the part yet. And then Joe Burrow, who looks completely lost as
Yeah.
of right now.
Yeah, the Burrow one scares me. So
So you're leaving him?
no, I would.
I don't even know who to love out of these. I mean,
well, that's the thing. When you text me the picture of this write up, I almost text you back and said, "Can I leave 2 of them?"
can I? Yeah, I'm not loving anyone.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I don't love Caleb Williams.
Nope.
In fact, based on his week 1 performance and the fact that he's a rookie, I'm going to leave him. He could prove me completely wrong, but my point is that if I'm a GM of a fantasy team, you haven't shown me anything yet.
No.
And I mean, none of the 3 of them have
Yeah.
so far this year, but 2 of them have previous experience showing us that they can do it. So I'm gonna leave Caleb Williams.
Yeah, honestly, to me, it was close between Williams and Burrow on who to leave because I think the other one is the one you flip.
And I agree with that. I would
think
keep
somebody would pay for Burrow
Right.
on name alone.
right.
Obviously Jamar Chase is playing without his contract, but
he hadn't
T.
practiced,
Higgins,
and T. Higgins
is
is
that's getting kind of fishy. I guess somebody tried to call him out saying he's faking it, and he's like, "Well, I'm playing for a contract, so I just don't understand." And it's like, okay, well, the day before your injury popped up, it came out that you were dealing with a hammy, and you said, "I'm 100%. I've never felt better going into a season." and all of a sudden next day you're doubtful and then you're out, and
Right.
now you haven't practiced this whole week. Now you're doubtful and probably out. What's going on? So yeah.
Well,
so
it's not doing him any good by not playing.
exactly, and these hamstring injuries that he seems to have every year, that just linger. So
Yeah, maybe he should go to the same people that
Christian Watson.
Watson and Stokes went to
Yeah.
to try and get that
Even
worked
out
out.
his hamstrings. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think Williams and Burrow. It was close to me on who to leave and who to flip. I said whichever one you picked, I'd flip the other one. Burrow name alone, and you can still say, well, it's Jamar Chase, and once T gets healthy, he'll be back, and it's Joe Burrow and it's the Bengals.
Yeah, you're right. It's different that Burrow and the Bengals have gone to the playoffs, etc., and Caleb is new, and the Bears haven't gone to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they've got probably the best set of 3 receivers in football,
Yeah.
but 2 of them are potentially injured right now.
Yep.
He only threw for 93 yards last week
Yeah.
with those 3 in there. I have no faith.
Yeah. See, like you said, if you were to leave Joe Burrow, I would flip Caleb Williams, because there's going to be somebody in that league that would maybe not pay a lot, but pay a decent price because they want to be the one who was right.
Maybe a
about
homer.
Caleb Williams. Well, yeah. Go find the Bears fan in your league. Phil.
Phil, where are you? I need you. No, I didn't
Somebody's
draft.
going to want to be right about Caleb Williams.
I didn't
He
draft
is.
Caleb Williams
Yeah.
in any of my leagues.
So,
I don't have him.
And then Kirk Cousins, yeah, I mean, it's still scary because he did not look very good
But-
in that game.
But
Exactly. The but.
he recovering from that injury, the mental aspect, getting back to it, feeling comfortable, I think he has some great upside.
And you got Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You've got great
exactly.
upside in the
Kyle Pitts and Drake London.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So he's got the tools. I mean, they all have the tools around them to turn it around. But, with the other situations going on, Kirk is in the best position
Yep.
at this moment. So,
Yep. So we're kind of in agreement. That's all we've got for this week. So if you have any questions, send us an email. If you want to see the gestures, go on the which he's doing right now again. Go on YouTube and find Fantasy Rap. Otherwise, that's all we've got for this week. I am Ozzy.
and I'm Austin.
Have a great week.
See you.